Bye, bye, Miss American Pie. I'm Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Good old was drinking whiskey and rye. It'll be the day that I die. That I die. Nice American Pie. I went to the levee, but the levee was dry. And all the boys drinking whiskey and rye. This'll be the day that I die. I'm a story. You said you call my name. You like, oh. You call my name. You little bra. You're on my knees. I'll take you there. You're my, you're your pet. I don't pray like you there. Joy is a voice. The sky, close my eyes. Amane, Asabra, Amanes, attack you the Yamana, Yapra, Together with me like a dream, like water, my name, a little pro, a minus, I take you there, I tell you part, I got you there, no, a little pro. Yes, I never saw you. The star I and I feel like a prayer. Live me life, lose me, mystery, like a dream. What you say, like a bright, like me there. You, you, you. You say, like a bright, like me there. Like me there. Lose me, mystery, like a bright, what you say. Like me there, take me there, a bright. Yeah, yeah. Da, da, da. Oh, why have you met? Oh, why my friends? Once on time. Oh, man. What was I to do? Realize. Oh, the Moskva, Arukakepa, to the wind, judge us passing by, the wind, yeah, be so close, like brothers. Oh, so yeah, no, take me out of my mind. on this road, on those past. Oh, man, to the magic of the moment. Tomorrow, trust of time. Oh, my, my, No tomorrow, I'm a one, over. No, builder, no, love tonight. Love tonight. No, So I'm going to read you my book real quick. And then I need you guys to tell me what you think with the new paragraph or sentence on to it. Love Gained, Love Lost. Written by Alex McClure. Prelude. The beginning of everything. Long before the universe came to be, there was a void. This void was devoid of anything, but in a single instant, it became so bright that something came to exist. This came to be the universe as we know it. When this happened, the void became cognitive and gained form. This event was the birth of the universe and the God King. This God could do anything that any other god or goddess in the future could do. As the universe cooled and the world's whole of life formed, he watched it all. As he watched these worlds form and new life forms come into existence, and call their planets home, he grew to long for a place to call home. He grew to long for a place to call home. So he decided to create a place to call home. But he had it ingeniously thought of putting it just outside reality. This place would soon come to be known as the heavenly realm. He guided these many worlds down a path of knowledge and intrigue. But when it came to the world of humans, he tried to give them the knowledge that he had given to many others, but found that they had gone down the path of religion. So when he returned to the heavenly realm, he found 13 gods that this young species had created. I suppose I need to raise these young gods to be the best that they can be and show them how God should act, he said to himself. From this point forward, he viewed the other gods as children because they came into existence right after humanity came to exist. He took it upon himself to be more of a father figure. And when the other gods would mess with mortals while they were living their best lives, he would get mad at them and lock them into a hellscape that would use someone's greatest fears against them. This very hellscape would later be known as the underworld by mortals. He was a god without a name that all other gods feared, but the humans dearly loved him for his benevolence. When he would descend from the heavenly realm, he would be adorned in leather and gold armor, in which the leather was woven with cloth unknown to man, unknown to men. However, when something piqued his interest, whether a human or a beast, he would descend into a discreet form to observe it in person. Chapter 1: The Meeting. 250,000 years before the great flooding of the world, while observing humans, he realized he was observing one woman more than any others. This human was not very special in her own right, but she was humble and kind to everyone who knew her. As he observed her as she went about her day, he became intrigued by her. During his observations of this human, he saw her pray for her neighbors rather than herself in the early morning hours. After she had finished her prayers, she made herself a breakfast of Gordobu eggs and Brocothus fruit. After this delightful breakfast she went and put on a floral dress in the pattern of lilies. She then went to help the village prepare breakfast for the elders and orphans. Once they were fed, she went to the temple of the gods with the leftovers to offer them breakfast. I, Brithia of Calithia, now send this humble breakfast to the heavens and ask for another modest day of harmony for everyone in our humble world. Brithia was a modest woman with eyes that matched the calm blue sea, and hair the color of crimson flames. Her voice was as gentle as a calming lullaby, and her dress had lilies patterned on the woven loom. Across the woven loom. The God King had said to himself, I am intrigued by this human's motives for praying for others rather than for herself. I must have a word with her about it. So the god decided he would go down and meet her, disguised as an ordinary man. The first time they met, it was a scene fit for a fairy tale. The great god revealed himself to her from the shadows of the tree line one night as she washed her evening gown in the river. They were surrounded by the light of the moon and 1,000 fireflies as he stood before her and asked her for her title. She smiled beautifully, making the god's heart tremble. Well, and she asked, "You mean my name? My name is Berthia. What is your name, stranger?" As he spoke with her, he reached out her. She reached out to shake his hand. He trembled at her hand's slight touch when he did the same. The god did not have a name, as so he stood wondering what it could be. She simply smiled and said, "Is it Xandros? You look as though you could be a Xandros." Coming from the most beautiful woman that Xandros had ever seen, he fell in love with the name that he was given by, and the woman who stood before him in the light of the fireflies. He smiled and said, "I like this name. Can I have it? May I have it?" She nodded and said, "Sure, stranger. You can have it. You're a strange one, aren't you?" The god simply smirked a handsome smirk and vanished into the night, not knowing what else he could have said, although he would have been able to. But the god began to visit her every week, trying to grow accustomed to the culture of the mortals and learn how he could speak to her. He knew much about the humans from observing them, but knew little about them individually. He would come down from time to time to satisfy his curiosity. However, this is the first time he attempted to communicate with and one person, and, and stay for hours at a time. During these weeks of intrigue, he learned that humans could live many years longer than the other life forms he had helped down the path of knowledge and intrigue. The humans had built villages the size of small cities and buildings that were barely taller than the tallest trees. Each village he visited had a dialect of the same language. The temples of the gods that he visited in each village were large enough to hold two villages within them. He had started to think that if humans had this level of skill without help from the gods, they could do even better with his help. As they grew closer, she began to understand he was a god, although he tried to come across as a mortal man. Began to come every day instead of every week. His visits grew longer. He found himself thinking about building a kingdom with these people as he grew attached to them. The thought of her as his queen filled his heart with joy, and he grew increasingly attached to them every day. As Xandros went from the human realm to the heavenly realm, all the other gods became curious about their king's activities in the mortal realm. So some of them decided, to follow their king to see what had caught their king's attention. They were not expecting to catch a glimpse of their king falling in love with a human woman. These gods were so flabbergasted uh, at this reality that they had to rush back to the heavenly realm to tell the other gods the incredible news that their king may have found a mortal queen. The other gods found Xandros terrifying. So they were surprised when they saw how he was with Brithia. They saw a sweet, romantic man who would do anything for her. She only saw a sea of stars in his eyes, full of love and compassion for her, while the other gods were used to his fierce discipline and anger. Chapter 2: The Feast of the Gods. Be right back. One evening, Xandros had come to ask, "Hey, Brithia, is there anything you would like to know about my children before I return to the heavenly realm for the feast of the gods?" Brithia then asked him, What are the names of the other gods, and what is your true name? Zandros replied, I never had a name until you gave me one. Brethia hesitated, realizing what she had done, and asked Zandros, So I gave a name to a god? He smiled gently. Indeed, my lady. You gave the king of the gods a name, and I wouldn't have it any other way, because it came from the one I have come to love with my entire being. Brithia asked with deep hesitation, Do the other gods have names? Yes, they have names. Mortals gave their names when they came into existence. Zandros walked thoughtfully and motioned for her to follow. Would you like to know their names? In fact, would you like to come with me this evening, Brithia, to the feast of the gods? Of course I would. She nodded with a beautiful smile. That way I don't offend them. Zandros smiled. Brithia, my love, why would you offend them by not knowing their names? She sighed, and before thinking of a response, she found herself in a lavish banquet. Surrounded by tables of the finest fruits, the finest wines, and food that she'd never even heard of. Brithia was surrounded by beautiful women who stared respectfully at Zandros, and handsome men who eyed him enviously. She could hear music unlike she'd ever heard, surrounded by the bright flickering torches that bathed the room in warm light, comforting light. As a woman approached them, Xandros spoke with all the sweetness in the world to Brithia. The mysterious woman's eyes were the color of seaweed. Her skin was the color of sand, but it looked as smooth as polished river stone. She gave a low bow to Brithia, showing her the shining glow of her golden tiara, which accented her silky smooth auburn hair. This is Gracia. Xandros Xandros gently motioned to the woman as she straightened her back. This she is the goddess of earth and nature. Looking at how the gods looked at him, Dorothea began to understand why Xandros never loved the other gods as he had loved her. She observed his interactions with the other gods when she accompanied him to the heavenly realm for the incredible feast of the gods, which he had to preside over. She learned from all the time that they spent together this way. Xandros thought of the other gods as children. As their pleasant evening continued, he introduced Berthia to the other gods. The next god being Nova. Nova was a beautiful young goddess with hair the color of sapphires and eyes that shined like emeralds. Her angelic voice reminded Berthia of her mother. With a continuous smile, Berthia gave a she gave a low, elegant bow to Berthia and said, "It is it's wonderful to meet you, Berthia. Nova is the goddess of life and rebirth." Xandros was explained. She is my eldest daughter. She keeps the others in line while I'm away. As Berthia listened to the god's introduction, she started to smell. She started to smell the exquisite aromas of foods being prepared for this evening's feast. Reveria was a young radiant young goddess with whose ice blue eyes could pierce the darkest nights. Her hair was a halo blonde that matched the very dress she was wearing that evening. She had elegantly strolled up to Berthia and bowed as gracefully as Berthia had seen the other goddesses do before. Reveria gently said gracefully, "Welcome to the Feast of the Gods, Berthia. My name is Reveria. I am the goddess of light and the sun." After they stood there in silence for a moment, Xandros asked in a slight urgent tone, as though he remembered something, "Reveria, would you show Berthia around as while I go talk to your sister?" At that moment, Xandros remembered that the second eldest of the goddesses was a bit peculiar in her choice of attire, especially while in the kitchen, and he needed to make sure Berthia wouldn't be surprised or affected by it. "Yes, father," Reveria said gleefully. Xandros gave Berthia a kind smile and then made his way to the kitchen to find Artesia, the goddess of home and cooking, in nothing but an apron, just as they expected. When he entered the kitchen, it felt like 1,000 suns had been ignited there, as it had many times before, from the heat of the stoves and ovens. Artesia, I know you don't like wearing clothes while in the kitchen, but we have a guest tonight from the mortal realm. So, could you please wear something more appropriate than just an apron? He asked her as he turned his head to avoid the sight. Artesia gave a brief bow. Oh, Xandros turned his head in courtesy, and she headed out to dress. Artesia, I already said that. He looked over the cooking food and took it upon himself to watch over it until she returned. As Xandros watched over the cooking cuisine, he thought to himself out loud, where did I go wrong with raising them? I know I taught them to wear clothes when others were around. I think you did a great job raising us, Dad. And we would have turned out to be a lot different if you had not been there for us, Artesia said as she walked back in, overhearing. She had walked in with a one-shoulder dress with a floral rosemary pattern with lavender on it. Thank you for that. I needed to hear that, Xandros said with a slight smile. Well, Artesia was surprised to see her father's happiness. So she asked, what has made you this happy, Dad? The first woman who hasn't thrown themselves at me and prayed for others other than herself. Others than herself, Xandros said with pride. So, Father, what do you want to talk to me about? Oh, she said curiously, looking upon his face. I wanted to ask you if you could tell me what you think of Pythia after tonight's feast. Father, why do you desire our approval so much when we should be the ones seeking your approval for our actions? At this moment, Xandros came to understand what he was doing. He realized he was acting like a child excited about a new toy he had gotten. Or they had gotten. Father, are you okay? Did I do something or say something to upset you? Then Artesia asked as she watched her father's face go from one of concern to one of anguish. You didn't do anything to upset me, my dear daughter. You just helped me realize something I was doing wrong myself, Xandros said with displeasure in his voice. Father, I do think you're doing what is right for you and for her. If that is any consolation, she said with a slight smile. Thank you for your words of comfort, my daughter. Now, should we go out and get the festivities going? Yes, father, she said with glee. As they left the kitchen, and with the food floating just above their heads, they saw Constances, the god of love and marriage, standing out in front of the door. When he saw his father helping Artesia carry the food for the feast, he asked, Father, is there anything I can help with? Yes, Constances, there is. Can you let everyone know that the food is on its way out so they can get ready for the greetings? Yes, Father, Constances said with grace as he left. As Xandros and Artesia entered the dining hall, the grand trumpet played tremendously. The rest of the gods rose from the chairs and were announced by the angels. Demetria, the goddess of natural beauty and medicine, please be seated, called the angels. Demetria's hair was as black as obsidian. Her eyes were an icy blue, and her body was a gorgeous tan. Betraea, goddess of law and order, please be seated, the angels proudly said. Betraea had golden blonde hair that looked to have been cut just above the shoulder. Her eyes were the color of chocolate, and her hair and her skin was as fair as snow. Usantra, goddess of oceans and water, please be seated, cried the angels. Usantra's hair was the color of the bluest sky, and her eyes were the color of evergreens. Her skin was as white as sea foam. The greetings had gone on for another 5 minutes before all the gods' names were called. After they had been announced, they began to eat. The feast continued unencumbered for the rest of the night until Brythia came to Xandros to take her home. Brythia and Xandros had returned to the human realm, where they spoke about the night's festivities and what they had enjoyed. Chapter 3: The Misunderstanding. Upon their return to the human realm, Xandros asked Brythia if she had thoroughly enjoyed herself at the night's festivities. Tonight was delightful. Oh, and the food was unlike anything I have ever had. Honestly, I felt quite out of place there. Berthia said hesitantly. Was there anyone or anything that made you feel that way? He No, not really. Berthia said through a yawn. Could we pick this up another day so I can get some sleep? So I could get some sleep? Yeah, sure. Er, Xander said with deep thought. Sleep well. Xander's returned. As Xandros returned to the heavenly realm, he pondered why Berthia felt out of place at the feast. Xandros returned to the heavenly realm to find his children in a panic. When he asked them what had them in a panic, they said the timeline had changed and they couldn't they couldn't pinpoint the catalyst. First, stop panicking. Second, I'll find the catalyst and change. Then we'll figure out what to do from there. Then Xandros then found the catalyst and saw everything that had changed in the timeline. As he watched from the tremendous flood of the world, and the tremendous flooding of the world on back, he discovered humanity had started swaying more toward the path of knowledge while trying to integrate their religion with knowledge, with the knowledge they had learned 100 years after he had uh, taken Brithia to her first feast. When he decided to focus on Brithia and watch the chain events with her involved, after watching, that's when he decided to focus on Berthia and watch the events with her involved. After watching everything, he concluded that Berthia was the catalyst for the changes in the timeline. I may have found the catalyst for the changes, but my children may not like it. Then he called all his children into the time chamber and told them the changes happened because as they had Berthia join them for dinner. At first they were angry that this had happened, but they realized the changes might help the world down a better path than the one it was already on. That's all I've got so far. So if you guys can leave a comment and say what you thought of my book so far, or I would highly appreciate it. And if you guys liked this content and want to see more of it, please drop a like and a follow so I can start doing more like this, because it really helps me out and it helps the algorithm. Please, if you enjoy this, tell me what your favorite part of what I read was and let me know what you would like to see me write into it next. I will see you later, and I will Be around. Bye.